I'm I might or might not have the Montreal Canadiens game on. I swear but I'm paying attention here.
Uh, look, look, this will, he said you have to choose what to use your merits on, so,
It's on this
you know.
call. 100% on this call.
All right, amazing. So this week's Torah portion is a double portion. Behar Bechukosai is what it's called. That's how we refer to it. Parshas Behar and Bechukosai. And that will actually take us to the end of the book of Leviticus, end of the book of Vayikra. And we'll begin. So we'll do Mazal Tov. We have finished another round of the third book of the Torah together. And that means next week they'll start with Bamidbar, which is the beginning of the next book, the fourth book of Moses. And so Bahar and Bechukosai. Bechukosai is a heavy duty Torah portion. Bechukosai is one of the ones that goes through the blessings and the curses. What happens if we do, and what happens if we don't, right? So that is Bechukosai. And the first one, Bahar, actually a lot of it focuses on the seventh year being the sabbatical year. When it comes to the agricultural world, which we know in Judaism, our holidays all line up with parts of the agricultural world, the growing seasons and the different types of crops that come out at different points, the seasons of the year, they line up with our holidays and with our Jewish calendar in a very convenient fashion. And we also know that if you remember, don't remember, so we have the sabbatical year. That is that we do things in cycles of 7, right? Our days of our week. We have 6 days of the week, and then we rest on the 7th. We have 7 years of working our fields and those types of things. And then what do? We rest on the 7th year. And then we continue where we have 7 sets of 7 is where we have 7 sets of 7 years. And then we rest on the 50th year. Okay, so you'll do 7 sets of 7. So you have a full 7th year, right? Or year 49 will be a sabbatical year. And then we'll have a Jubilee year, which will be the 50th year. And that ends up being, when that happens, that's double year. Now, let me explain a little bit more what happens during the sabbatical year. Sorry. Jeffrey, I can't remember if it's the year that we went. It was Baltimore allergies, guys. Really crazy. I've been wheezing like all day. So I may have another coughing fit at some point. So I don't think it was the year that we went, Jeffrey. I think it was the year after we went. But when we went, you could still see some of the signs. Whoa, Mitchell's upside down. Cool. There you go.
Sorry.
He was
The
getting ready for
magic trick.
perm, He was going back to perm. I mean, he was upside down. So I think when we were there, Jeffrey, you could still see signs. When we were traveling down through parts of down towards Masada, we passed by some kibbutzim and big farms where they had signs that said that this farm is a farm that is it keeps the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year. It's a little complicated from a halachic standpoint. To what degree it applies today? Are there Jewish law loopholes out of it? And we see these big signs. Now, what's the point of these big signs on there? It has halachic ramifications as to why they put these signs up there. But what's important to note is there also is the concept of let's support the farmers that are doing the classic tradition. So what does that mean? What are they doing? It means that the 7th year of the cycle, they do not work their fields. They leave their fields fallow. Whatever grows wildly, because things are going to grow wild because that's just how it goes. Some seeds take root and so on and so forth again. So they literally leave it alone. The fruit that grows during that year has a certain level of spirituality, of a higher level of kedusha. And it's a tremendous idea. But really, if you think about this, just imagine if we said like this. Let's say in America we said this. We said, okay, Jeffrey, we're going to start keeping 7 cycles, or 7-year cycle over here. You're going to work really hard for the banks and the financial world, and you're going to do your regular job for 6 years. And then we're going to say, guess what, Cracker Barrel? Mitchell is not working the 7th year,
I'm in.
right?
I'm
Right?
in.
And then Cracker Barrel says, well, guess what, Mr. Hodis? We won't be paying you for that year. You're like, you know that without me, you guys can't do anything. But that's all right. It's okay. Let's see what happens when I walk out on you guys, right? So there's two factors. There's the concept of like, hey, wait, the way that a farmer survives, right, is through his crops. He sells his crops, he barters his crops, he provides for community, right? So just from a farmer standpoint, he's got no money. He's got no means of taking care of his family, taking care of himself. But he goes ahead and he says, this is what Hashem said. Hashem said we should do this. Now, besides for, yes, it's good for your field, to give it a year break. And that's why in the back in the day, they used to actually cycle their fields, right? They would, this is facts on the ground historically, and they still do it today, right? You rotate your fields, you actually leave your fields fallow. But this concept was actually where they left everything fallow every 7 years. So can imagine what level of emunah, what level of bitachon, of trust and faith in God and faith in the Torah it would take to say, I am going to not work this year, and whatever happens, happens, because God said that's what I'm supposed to do. That requires an unbelievable level of faith. And this is something that's done, it's still done today, it was done back then. And those farmers, they don't, especially that, they were farmers. What would they do during that year? They actually would take that year as a year where they could sit and study Torah full time and focus on their mitzvahs and focus on their family. And because usually in the farmer world, that's pretty challenging to do. And that's something that they would do. And it's amazing to think about it. And it's still done to this day. But there's an interesting note when you look at the Torah, when you look at the portion, in the middle of where it's talking about the sabbatical year and the Jubilee year, it throws in there the laws of what we call as ona. Ona is when somebody sells something for more than it's actually worth. Or if you go ahead and buy something from somebody for a lot less than it's worth. Now, we won't talk about price gouging, which is really what it is. And the price of gas and so on and so forth, as I paid $4.50 just before to fill up my car, right? That was not $450, but it was $4.50 per gallon. I don't know what it costs where you guys are living, but that is not a usual thing around here. You're even more?
More.
Well, Jason, stay in your house, man.
I
I
just filled up yesterday for $5.80.
Wow.
What?
Man.
Yeah.
429 in Memphis.
All right.
How much?
429.
Yeah, that's what most of the places are around here. But they just shot up yesterday. But that's, you got to get the Upside app. I wonder if they're still doing that Upside thing, even with
Yeah,
the
they're
prices
still doing
being-
that.
They are?
Mhm.
Okay, I got to jump on the Upside again. In Memphis, I used to do it.
$3.89 here.
How much?
$3.89.
Oh, Will. Jeffrey, what are you paying these days up in New England?
I think 429 was accurate.
So when are you going to redo the Boston Tea Party over here? Going to do the Boston gas party? That's it.
Get on the
Unbelievable.
bicycle.
That's it. That's a long ride, isn't it, Jeffrey? From Holden to Shrewsbury, it's pretty far.
Yeah, very.
So what does it do? Right in the middle of this Torah portion, it seems totally out of place. It throws in there this mitzvah that discusses about how much extra are you allowed to charge? What's considered a market value? How much extra are you allowed to charge? The concept of taking advantage of somebody who does not know better. So there's a discussion as to why does this verse get thrown in there? It doesn't seem to fit in over there. And the answer really is that the two concepts are all stem on the same idea. The faith that it takes, and the reason why somebody could go ahead and say, look, I'm going to put down the shovel, I'm going to put down the plow, I'm going to give my animals a break, I'm going to give myself a break, and I am not going to work my field this year. God says in the Torah, he's going to take care of me if I do this. So I'm going to do this. When it comes to the world of price gouging, when it comes to the world of going ahead and messing with the prices and taking advantage of somebody, that's an expression of, I'm the one in control of my livelihood. I'm the one who's going to make it that I make enough money for my family, and it's taking out the God factor. They both really rely on this God factor. Let me give an amazing story that happened to us years ago. So when we had our old gray minivan, if you guys recall that minivan, so when I first got it, I took it to the shop. So I think the first time I had to go back for an inspection, not the first inspection, but the second to go back for an inspection. I took it to my mechanic, and he says, "Look, Noach, it's got this problem over here, and I don't, I could play a little bit of shtick. I could try to, just unplug and replug it in, and try to reset the system, but you really have a problem over here." I said, "Okay." So then he said, "We could do this and that, but it's going to cost you, a decent amount of money to go ahead and to fix it." And he said, "No, I was just going to, just do the shtick without telling you, but I know that I had to ask you first, if I could do the shtick without you, with your permission." So I said to him, "Look, I try to do things in the straight and the narrow. I try to do things properly. And if it's going to come down to me doing something that's a little bit, tricky, or a little bit playing the system, and it's not 100% yashar, 100% straight and correct, I can't be involved with it." He said, "I knew you were going to say that." No, I knew it. That's what. So when it comes to these kinds of things, sometimes we'll try to, I'll save a few bucks there, I'll save a few bucks there, and I'll do something. It's not really a lie. I mean, come on, it's not that big of a deal, right? And the answer is that those types of choices where it's a little bit iffy, right? Okay, a lot of it iffy. Oh, we wouldn't do a lot of it iffy. Come on, none of us would do that. That's inappropriate. But when something is a little bit iffy, that's where we get into this space where we're like, oh, maybe it's okay. I could do that. No one's going to know. Not really. Everybody does it. Don't worry about it, right? Everybody does it. Doesn't make it officially okay. Okay, that's a great discussion. Halakhic discussion. Everybody speeds. So does that make it okay?
I was just going to say, what about driving 70 in a 65 zone? Like, come on.
There you go. Right? So
there's got to be some limitations.
Right. So there is a range in that, but there's a range over there. What's considered to be, generally acceptable, right?
Right.
That would be a good example. But when it comes to this, like, oh, I'm going to save myself this, I'll save myself that by playing the system. Someone says, oh, I'm going to use a tool, and then I only used it once. I'm going to return it. It's not a big deal. That type of thing. Is that considered stealing? Oh, Home Depot knows that we all do that. Well, okay, that's a good question. I would say maybe ask a rabbi, right? Or ask your friend that's the really honest guy. What would Abe Lincoln have done, right? So these types of things, that's why. So why does it throw this mitzvah in the middle of the conversation about the sabbatical year? Because it stems from the same place. Where are we reminded of the God factor in all the things that we accomplish in our lives? Or is there too much space where you say, oh, this was me. I did this, right? The faith, when Jason puts together the beginning of a beer badge, right? He knows that, yes, it has to do with his expertise, but he also knows that it's possible, God forbid, right, that the yeast won't take properly and the pH will be off, and then there went that batch. So he has to remind himself, or he reminds himself constantly that Hashem, you made an amazing world of chemistry and science, and it's going to do its thing, because I know, Hashem, that you've got this. So we have this in our lives all the time, where we have the ability to go ahead and say it was me, and leave out Hashem. Or we have an amazing opportunity to step up our mitzvah game and say, there's a Hashem factor over here. There's a Hashem piece over here. We're going to put in our effort, our human effort, but God's the one that really takes it to the finish line. And that's the concept of the sabbatical year. That's the concept of a mitzvah that would say, don't overcharge. If you're supposed to get the extra $25, God's going to give it to you. It's not going to be because you went ahead and played the system or took advantage of somebody. That's not going to get you that $25. And guess what? If it actually, you overcharged, it might get cut out someplace else in your life because you weren't supposed to get that money, or you were supposed to get the money, but not in that fashion. So these are just the concept of going ahead and keeping God in mind as we do things. There's a reality that God created, right? Our world, and the sin of Adam and Eve, that made it that we had to go to work. So we got to go to work. We can't just, pray and it rains and boom, then things grow from the ground. Part of the curse, that's how it goes. A part of that factor is reminding ourselves that Hashem is part of this activity. And that's how we bring spirituality and holiness into everything that we do. Everything we do can have a God factor to it. And it can have a moment for spiritual uplifting or spiritual connection. Or we can just live in a world of mundane, and whatever happens, happens, coincidence, whatever it might be, right? And that's a life without godliness. That's a life without so much holiness and connection. So we have the ability to really up our game. If you get a chance, at some point we encourage, we have the same encouragement every year. If you get a chance to read the Torah portion of Bechukosai, it's the last part of the book of Leviticus. It's a lot daunting as to what it says over there, that if you do this, then these great things will happen. If you do this, then these horrible things will happen. And we have experienced those horrible things as a people, many of those horrible things. Based off of the fact that we were doing the things that we weren't supposed to do. And therefore, there was a cause and effect that took place. So we don't have time to go through that whole thing. It's a little bit scary, but it's worthwhile to read because it just reminds us of there's a God involved over here. He's watching what happens in this world, and he cares about what happens in this world. And he's going to help us get to ultimately to become our best selves, or work towards becoming our best selves on an individual level, on a micro level, on a macro level. And when we can bring God into our lives on a regular basis, it's a way to up our game, and it's a way to stem a lot of things that unfortunately seem to be happening in the world. And it's just another way that we could do our part to keep the world in a good place. So God willing, we should merit to do that. And everyone should have an awesome Shabbos.